Ready? Okay.
Can you hear me okay, Roger? I think your connection's just gone there.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Cool.
You.
Great stuff. What I might do, just because a second ago we were having some bandwidth issues with my, so hopefully you can see my screen. Turn it on to
Yep.
make sure that my bandwidth doesn't affect the delivery. So if that's okay with you,
Yep.
I'll just stop the video, but I'm still here. Okay.
Great.
Good stuff. So let's get going. Welcome all to Coding 101 JavaScript. Before we crack on, I just want to do a few rounds of introductions. Thanks for those of you that have already shared where you're from in the chat. As Ruth mentioned, I'm keen to make sure that this is a session as interactive as possible. Now, introductions. First things first, CodeOp. Probably most of you know about CodeOp. If you don't, CodeOp is an international tech school created for women, trans, and gender non-conforming people. Okay, so we're a community that we're very passionate about doing meaningful work, and we, a bit of a utopian. We try to change the world by sharing knowledge. Okay, today's webinar and all the webinars that we're doing go in that direction. We really want to share knowledge, and we want to share the passion that we have towards coding, data analytics, and so on with the rest of you. That's CodeUp. About myself, my name is Roger. I'm from Barcelona. I have 10 years of experience in the digital space. I lived and worked across England, Australia, India, and England. And in my experience, I have had roles such as product owner, and I have also been leading software development teams. Now, the first thing I want to say, and I don't want to talk a lot about me, but the first thing I want to say to all of you is I do not have a tech background. So I do not have a degree in computer science. I do not know a lot about mathematics or statistics. I do not have a tech background. I say that because I get it. Some of you might be like scratching your heads thinking, wow, JavaScript, is this really difficult? Is programming very difficult? Trust me when I say I know where you've been is not that difficult, and today's webinar is going to be a bit of a proof on that direction. Okay, so definitely I want you to leave your thoughts on how daunting can be programming just outside, because you'll see that it's within your reach much more than you think. Okay, so that's a bit about us. I also have Ruth with me that she was just talking a second ago. Ruth, do you want to introduce yourself just for the audience? If that's okay?
Yep, no problem. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, you can hear me okay now. I'm having a little bit of computer issues here. So yes, no, like Roger was saying there, I'm Ruth. I work for CodeUp, so I'm the campus manager. So if anyone has any questions regarding learning to code, our courses, anything like that, feel free to just reach out to me. At the end, I'll put in some information in the chat so you can find out more about us. And if you want to join any more of these workshops, I can let you know.
Great stuff. So that's about the introduction. We're gonna crack on in a second. The first thing I wanted to understand, in addition to where you're from, is if you could put in the chat, why is it that you want to learn code? I say that because the reason why I wanted to learn coding was because I started working in some tech startups, and there was a lot of developers. And trust me, they were just talking gibberish to me. They were talking about logs, about sprints, about features, about coding languages, and I had no idea about that. So I wanted to learn because I wanted to understand what they were saying, and I was curious. I'm someone that just likes to learn, but in my case, I wanted to learn because I wanted to be able to talk to software developers and be able to have a similar understanding of what is it that we wanted both to achieve, both from a business and from a tech point of view. So if you want to put in the chat the reasons or one of the motives that you want to learn to code, that would be awesome. Keen for all of us to share the reasons why we want to learn, because at the beginning, I want to make sure that we can all share the passion that we have towards learning as much as possible. Okay, so if you want to drop some messages in the chat, that would be awesome. Whilst we do that, today we will cover, as Ruth mentioned earlier, this is going to be super hands-on. I'm going to do a very brief presentation. Then we're going to be doing an activity together. We're going to get our hands dirty together very quickly. And then at the end, we're going to be doing a bit of a Q&A. So we're going to have some minutes in case you want me to address any questions specifically, or you want to find out more about such and such. So we'll definitely have time for that after that. Okay. Now, let's start with the presentation. So what we'll do today, I'll give you an understanding of where does JavaScript live. What does JavaScript is? Where does it live? By the end of this session, you'll be able to get comfortable with understanding where does JavaScript live in its environment, as well as some basic statements and instructions for the browser. This is the first installment of a series of JavaScript webinars that we're going to be doing. Now, Coda offers a wide range of webinars, so keep an eye for future announcements because there's a lot of JavaScript and non-JavaScript webinars coming up. We're going to start in a second. What I would ask you is, I know Zoom can facilitate that, but just make sure that you've got my screen and yours sort of a side by side. So you can just see as we go together, you can also replicate it on your own machine. Okay, so if you can, just try to have both screens sort of side by side. Okay. All right, so without further ado, let's talk JavaScript. What is JavaScript? JavaScript is a programming language that was created in the 90s. Okay. What happened was that in the 90s, for example, all the computers that you have right now probably have an application, which is a calculator, right? So program in your computer that is just a calculator. Now, programs like that were created with a bunch of languages that existed at the time, right? Ruby and Java and all the rest of it. But what happens also during the 90s is that the World Wide Web emerged. Websites were created, the internet was created. And JavaScript was designed as a programming for the website. It was designed to create and program websites, right? Now, thanks to this unique relationship with the web, the fact that JavaScript was able to program websites, it became really popular really fast. And today is the to-go language for web related programming. So if you talk to any front-end developer and a full-stack developer, or anyone that does anything when it comes to programming websites, that person must know JavaScript. That's how important it is today. Okay, it has evolved a lot and has many uses and variants. But for the purposes of today's webinar, let's just assume that JavaScript is just to be used for web programming. As I mentioned, it has other purposes, but for today's webinar, just JavaScript, we're going to be using JavaScript purely for the website. Okay. Now, to understand better JavaScript, rather than me giving you theory and definitions, let's just better perhaps understand where does it sit? Where does JavaScript, where is the magic happening? So we can better understand JavaScript. Okay. Now, what happens when you access the website? As we mentioned earlier, JavaScript is a language for programming websites. Now, when you load a website, any website, a browser, a Google or a newspaper, your favorite newspaper, what happens is that the browser, so Google Chrome, Safari, Brave, Internet Explorer, all of these are the browsers, right? Are the applications that you use to surf the web. So when you access the website, what your browser is doing is taking a file that someone has programmed, and then in that file, there's a set of instructions that allow the browser to display the website that they show to you, okay? So again, if you're using Google Chrome and you go to google.com, google.com will just, your browser will just go and take a file from someone in San Francisco, and read the instructions and effectively show to you the google.com set. Okay. Now, three things happen when you load a website. Okay. The first thing that happens is there's a set of instructions in HTML. Now, I know you see this word here. Let me just start saying you do not need to know HTML for the purpose of today's webinar. So don't worry about it. Okay. Now, what happens is that your browser reads these instructions in HTML. What HTML does is the content and layout of the website. So if, for example, you have a website, HTML, the instruction in HTML will define, for example, the images that you have. It will define if you have one column or two columns. It will define where you put the text. It will define if this is a title or this is a paragraph. It will just define the skeleton of your website, okay? That's what HTML does. That's the instructions that the browser reads and says, okay, this is, you want an image on the left and some text on the right. Got it, I can do it. So all of these instructions for the browser are done through HTML, okay? The second bit is once you've got the skeleton, your text, your images, and so on, then there's a second set of instructions, which is CSS. CSS is another language that is designed for presentation. So what CSS does is a set of instructions that the programmer gives to the browser, so the browser can change the presentation of the website. Example, changing the color of the background, changing the size of the font, making a font that is Arial as opposed to Times New Roman, changing the size of the paragraphs. These sort of presentations, the cosmetic changes, is what CSS will do. So in combination with HTML, the browser can display the content, your skeleton, your structure, as well as putting some color to it, adjusting the presentation, the size of the text, that sort of thing. Okay. Now, the third set of instructions that the browser reads, and is what we're going to be focusing today, is JavaScript. JavaScript is what focuses on interaction. Okay. Now, JavaScript is used to make web pages interactive. So, for example, anything like clicks, pop-ups. If either of you does online shopping, for example, and you add a product to your basket, that will be done through JavaScript. If you go to a website and contact us form, and you put your name and the message, and then you submit the form, that will be also done through JavaScript. JavaScript mediates and enables websites to be interactive, for people to interact with their websites. Okay, that's a bit the division. This is a bit what happens when you access a website. Now, you don't need to know HTML, CSS for today's webinar. Do keep in mind this division. Keep in mind that three things happen when a browser accesses it, reads a file, and this file has three languages: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which combine give you the result of the website that you see. Okay. Any questions thus far? This is just theoretical, so just as a takeaway, understand this division. But if there's any questions, please let me know.
So we have a question from Vanitha, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, and she's asking if HTML is also available with the CSS function.
Yes, so HTML, the answer is yes. HTML and CSS and JavaScript all live together. They do different things together. They're different languages. The syntax is different, the logic is different, but they available in that they're all loaded together. So when your browser wants to read google.com, it will read instructions in HTML, instructions in CSS, and instructions in JavaScript. So yeah, they kept separate, but they at the end of the day, it's just like three different sets of instructions. Does that answer your question?
Yes, she says thank you.
Good stuff. Great. Now, this is the end of theory. So now is when we're going to start understanding a bit better JavaScript. Okay, so that hopefully gives you an understanding theoretical about JavaScript. Now, this is, you will say, hey, Roger, this is very good and everything, but this is theory, man. Tell me more about JavaScript. Where do we find JavaScript? Where is the magic actually happening? Okay, let's have a look at right now finding JavaScript in HTML. So as I mentioned earlier, your browser loads a set of instructions, right, in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All of these instructions are in an HTML file. So HTML has a file that just has a little instructions, and this is what HTML looks like. So what you see in the screen right now is HTML. First things first, no one worries. You do not need to understand what you see in the screen right now. Okay, don't worry about it. All this to show you is that HTML works in a set of instructions. So you see at the very top that it says HTML and is in between this weird symbol. So what HTML does is you put content in it. So when you put HTML at the top of the file, the browser says, okay, you're talking to me in HTML. Imagine just a language, right? I'm talking to you in English or in Spanish or in French or in another language. So when the browser sees those tags, you see the symbol on the top left, this little bit of an arrow. So that is characteristic of HTML. It just simply open a tag and then you just give instructions. So the browser says, okay, you're telling me about JavaScript, something about head, something about body, blah, 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 blah. This is all on HTML. But one thing happens, and it's this. Now, this tag here, this is still in HTML. So when the browser arrives to respond, it says, okay, you created now a tag called script. What the browser does now says, okay, in between these two tags, so what happens in between these two tags is going to be a set of instructions, but it's not going to be in HTML. It's going to be in JavaScript. So as a programmers, we need to give the instructions to the browser, not in HTML, but in JavaScript. So all the coding that you do in JavaScript in today's webinar and in the future will be effectively what you write down between those two tags. So as I mentioned, when the browser takes this file, reads it, starts understanding all HTML, where to put the image, where to put the paragraphs, but says, hang on a second, now I see a script tag. Here, you're gonna give me a set of instructions in JavaScript. So these, between these two tags, is what's called the JavaScript environment, is where you and I, and all of us, are gonna be putting some magic, are gonna be giving instructions to the browser in JavaScript, okay? First thing I would like to do is I would like for us to get a bit familiar with this environment, with what happens between these two tags. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get a bit familiar with what happens in between there. How does the browser read JavaScript? How can we give instructions to JavaScript? So Ruth is gonna share with you in the chat. She's just gonna put a link in the chat now. We're gonna come back to these slides, but before we do that, I would like us to get familiar with JavaScript. Before we go through this, please let me know if there's any questions, but thus far, hopefully everything is making sense. Ruth will share with you, as I mentioned, a link to CodePen, and I'm gonna explain what CodePen is and what are we gonna be using it for, okay? So can still everybody see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your CodePen now.
Perfect. So that's pretty much the link that Ruth has shared with you in the chat, okay? I have a lot of screens. Don't worry about it. We're gonna go through it together point by point, okay? The first thing we see is here, we see like 3 columns, right? You see HTML, CSS, JS. Remember what we talked earlier about the divisions on how the browser reads your website, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? CodePen is a platform, the platform that we're using, that effectively allows you to code HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. See what the result would look like. So here at the bottom, you see some text. Hi, my name is Sarah, and this is an image, right? If you see here, I can drag this up. If everybody can try this, just to try to drag this up. Again, you'll see that the mouse changes from an arrow to a bit symbol. So if you just drag it, okay? So what we see here at the bottom is the result of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, okay? So imagine this is the website that we built. Now, we're using some HTML and CSS that already existed. So that's why this is the website that looks like. If you open CodePen empty, obviously the website is gonna be empty, okay? Because we're doing JavaScript, we're gonna close this for now. We don't need it for now. So if you can just drag it down, make sure we hide it, okay? We don't need this now, okay? Once it's closed, we can always open it again. So it's not a problem. We can just drag it up again and we can always open it, okay? Now, here we have now 3 columns, HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. On the left-hand side, you see HTML. We don't need this for now, so we're gonna close this again. So again, you just drag it to the left, right? You'll see that this moves. It doesn't matter. It's just resizing the length of the line, so it doesn't mean anything. This is just the preview, okay? So we close this, all right? Now we have CSS and JS here. JS is short for JavaScript, okay? Because we're not doing CSS, we can also drag this. So we can just drag it to the left, okay? Everyone with me thus far? So we just simply we open this, we close the preview of the website, and we've closed the HTML and CSS. So now we have the JavaScript screen in front of us, okay? Everyone with me?
Feel free to say yes in the chat. I can see some people already said yes, they're with you.
Right.
If anyone's got any problems and they haven't managed to get this far, let us know so we can keep you up to date. Perfect. Yeah. Everybody's saying yes.
Great stuff. So now is when the exciting stuff starts. So remember those tags that I showed you earlier when we were reading HTML and we saw 2 tags that said script and script? So whatever we put here in this screen is effectively what the browser would be reading between those tags. So here is where the magic happens. This is the JavaScript window. This is where we give the browser instructions on JavaScript. Okay, so let's do something. In your keyboard, you might find a symbol called slash. So if I just put 2 slashes, 1 and 2, right? No spaces, just on the top line, 1 slash, 2 slash. So it's this symbol here. This is the set of environment. So the way the browser reads JavaScript is through instructions or statements. Okay. Now, we the programmers tell the browser how do you want things, and you do that in JavaScript through instructions or statements. You give instructions to JavaScript that you want executed. Okay. You'll say, hey Roger, what is these 2 symbols that you were just talking a second ago? Well, that's an example of an instruction. So in JavaScript, if I put this symbol twice and then I make space, this is a comment. So when JavaScript reads this line, it will say, okay, I don't need to do anything. This is just a comment. So think of comments as, you know, when you're reading a book and in the margins, sometimes you make notes. If you have a pen or a pencil, you sometimes jot down some notes. So this is a comment. This is comments that are designed for the programmers, not for the browser. The instruction for the browser or for JavaScript is, okay, when you put these 2 symbols, you're just asking me to ignore what's on the right-hand side. So here I could put whatever I want. But this is an example of an instruction or a statement. Okay. Now, something else about the environment. JavaScript and the browsers read JavaScript instructions from top to bottom and one at a time. So you see that on the left-hand side there's 1, 2, 3. These numbers don't do anything. It's just for you to understand where is the top and where's the bottom. Browser will read these instructions or statements and do the first one. And once it understood the second one, it will move on to the second one and then on to the bottom. Okay? And always one at a time. Some of you perhaps can be at work or in school, or when you're at home with your friends, and you can be having a beer, listening to music, checking your phone if there's any SMS or WhatsApp. You're multitasking. Let me be really clear. JavaScript is incapable of multitasking. JavaScript is very good at doing a lot of instructions and statements, but always one at a time. So JavaScript will start from the top, read the first instruction. Once it's finished, move on to the next one, and then on to the last one. Okay. Now, you see a button that says run. Okay. When I click this button, what happens is I'm telling CodePen, so the platform that we're using, to read the instructions. So at the moment, the browser is not reading anything. I'm just writing the instructions. Are just simply text that I see in my script. But if I run it, then CodePen is executing these scripts. So you might see here some messages at the bottom. This is just nothing but CodePen saying, hey, I've read your instructions and I've gone through top to bottom and it's all completed. Okay. Now, as you see, nothing happened because the instructions that we gave to JavaScript were that all were comments, right? So that's how you run a script. You just click run, and then it just what happens is it just goes from top to bottom. Okay. Now, how do we give instructions? This is an example of an instruction. This simple, the dash here. But how do we give more instructions to the browser? In JavaScript and in all programming languages, you typically do it with what's called reserved words or keywords. So what that means is for you to give instructions to JavaScript, you use a specific words that JavaScript will understand and say, oh, okay, it has a specific meaning for JavaScript. Okay. All of these words typically are in English, but let's have an example of one. As I mentioned, this is a specific reserved symbol or reserved word. But another one is that we're going to see in a second is what's called alert. So alert, like in the English word, A-L-E-R-T brackets. Okay, that's an example of a keyword or a reserved word for JavaScript. So you'll notice here that there's brackets. Okay. When you use CodePen, if you just type once, it will automatically create both. So you don't have to do one and then the other. If you just create brackets with your computer in CodePen, it will automatically create 2. So opening one, closing. Okay. So if I write alert, that's A-L-E-R-T brackets, all followed, no space. What the browser says, this is a reserved keyword for JavaScript, and what this does is it triggers a pop-up. So when JavaScript would see that, say, hang on a second, now you're asking me, JavaScript or the browser, to do something. And what this means for JavaScript is trigger a pop-up. Okay. But inside this pop-up is effectively what I put in between the brackets. So for example, if I write 55, right? This instruction, this is telling JavaScript, trigger a pop-up, and inside of this pop-up, put the number 55. Okay. And as always in coding, don't take my word for it. Let's just test it. If I now click run, what will happen is that the browser just triggered a pop-up, and then the content of that pop-up is the number 55. Okay. What has happened here is that JavaScript has not ignored all of that. JavaScript has read all instructions, finished the first one, second one, third one, and then gone on to the bottom. But because it saw an instruction with a keyword, it said, you're asking me to do something specific. Here's the pop-up that you wanted. Okay. Any questions so far? If you do, just drop them in the chat and I can address them for you.
Everybody with us still? Everyone still awake? I think so.
Great stuff.
See.
Cool. Great. So let's do one thing. Let's delete this for now. Just delete all of that. Okay. And we just leave these 4 instructions here. Okay. I'm going to go back to the slides. We're going to come back to here in a second. But before we do that, I want to introduce to you a very important keyword, which is the alphabet of JavaScript. And I really want to show it to all of you. I'm just going to, you'll see still, I've just came back to the slides. Still everybody can see my screen?
We can see your slides.
Perfect. So the first thing, the alphabet of JavaScript is what's called a JavaScript variable. What's the question that I get when I say that? What is a JavaScript variable? Now, a JavaScript variable is effectively the alphabet of JavaScript, and it's going to be super useful for you to learn JavaScript, and particularly that again. What is a JavaScript variable? A JavaScript variable is nothing but a box. It's a box where effectively we put a unique name and we store data in it. So JavaScript and web is about manipulating data, right? Information. The way for us to manipulate all this data is to put it in boxes that we call variables. So for example, imagine if you move out of your apartment or if you move into a new house and you have to prepare all your things, right? So you would put your shoes in a box, you would in another box, and let's say, for example, your books in another. You would not have 2 boxes with the same name, because if you want to find things, you need to organize them in different boxes, right? This is exactly what a JavaScript variable is. Box with a unique name. You cannot have 2 boxes with the same name. And in this box, we can put what we want. And we'll see some examples in a second, okay? But that's what a JavaScript variable is. It's the alphabet, and it's just a box with a unique name where we store data, okay? Now, obviously, this is not JavaScript. What you see here are 3 boxes. How do we create a variable in JavaScript? That's what we're going to see in a second. Remember what we mentioned earlier about the keywords, the specific or reserved words that JavaScript reads? So to create a JavaScript variable, you also need to use a specific keyword. Okay. The keyword for a JavaScript variable is LET. LET is a keyword that is telling JavaScript, hey, JavaScript, I'm about to create a variable, so treat this differently because that's what I need, the instruction I'm giving you to do now, okay? So LET, that's the reserved word is a keyword that JavaScript understands that you're asking JavaScript to create a variable or a box, okay? Once we have this, we told JavaScript, hey, get ready, we're going to create a variable. We need to give a unique name to that, right? So that, for example, let's say it would be shoes. I cannot have 2 boxes with the same name, but in this box in particular, I want you to call it shoes, okay? So again, JavaScript will say, okay, LET space unique name. So LET, okay, you're asking me to create a box, and the name for that box is shoes in that case. Perfect, got it. JavaScript is waiting. And what is it waiting for? To say, hey, what do you want to put in that box? In JavaScript, to put stored information in a variable, we use this symbol. Now, heads up, everybody here, because I know most of us are probably familiar with this symbol. In JavaScript, this symbol is different from what we understand in mathematics. This symbol is assignment. Not equal is assignment. So assignment is nothing but JavaScript. We're telling JavaScript that what we want in this box is effectively what's on the right-hand side of this symbol. So we're telling JavaScript, hey, create a box or a variable called shoes, and the information in this box is effectively what's on the right-hand side of the assignment symbol. In this instance, boots. Right? So just to recap one time. Create a JavaScript variable, we use the keyword let space, we put a unique name, that creates a variable. And for us to put stuff inside that box, we use this symbol, which is assignment. And then whatever is on the right-hand side of this symbol, effective information that JavaScript is going to store in that value. Okay? And then if there are any questions thus far, otherwise, just once again, let, unique name, assignment symbol, and the content on the right-hand side. Everybody with me?
We have a question, is JavaScript case sensitive? And then we also have a few more questions around Python and HTML and CSS, but I thought maybe you could address them at the end.
Sure. Yeah, the question about case sensitive, it is, yeah. So for the keywords have to be, it's case sensitive, so it has to be lowercase. The unique name and the content that you put, you can just do it uppercase or lowercase. But for the keywords, so for example, the command that we saw earlier, alert or let for variable declaration, then yes, it's lowercase. You have to be in lowercase, let. And then Ruth, as you mentioned, if that's okay, those questions about Python and HTML, if we can hold fire for now, I'll definitely cover those questions at the end, if that's okay. So we can just focus on JavaScript for now.
We also have another question, which is a very good question. Is there a space between the equals and boots?
Yes, there is. The only thing to be mindful of is remember that there's a space, but do not be careful with mentioning this as equal. Yeah, I understand that that's the name of the symbol, but remember that in JavaScript, this means assignment. But yes, we're going to put a space in it. Yeah.
Sorry, you can spot the non-technical one here. That's my bad for saying that.
It's all good. It's all good.
Hopefully that answered your question, Brannigan.
Yeah, you would also put a space between let and shoes. So JavaScript says, okay, this is instruction. You tell me to create the variable, space, then shoes, space, assignment, space, content. Okay. Now, unless there's any other questions, this is theory. We're going to go through this again. But now I've shown you how to create variables. Why don't we go back to CodePen where we're, and we actually start creating variables, all of us, shall we? So here's where we are again. This is the content that we had earlier. So I showed you earlier how we create variables. What I would like for us to do all together is, hey, we can start now creating some variables, okay? So let's create a variable called name with your name in it. Let's do it together. Remember that to create a variable in JavaScript, and a variable is nothing but a box where we store information, we use the keyword let, okay? So let space name, right? Let space name space assignment symbol space quotes Roger. Now, I know I just mentioned quotes. I'll explain to you what quotes means. Before we do that, here you just see how I've just created a variable, okay? Now, why do I put these quotes here? In JavaScript, this quote is another instruction. You're telling JavaScript, hey, JavaScript, what I'm putting between these two quotes is actually text. So do not think this is a set of instructions. This is actually text. So if in CodePen, in the platform that we are, if you want to put the quotes, you'll see that if you just type it once, it will create the opening quote and the closing quote. So you don't have to create one and then text and then the other. It will just automatically create two quotes, okay? So you would just want to try it out. You see you put two quotes. The double quote, you would use the double quote. And then this is telling JavaScript, what happens between these two quotes is text. It's what's called a string, just text, okay? So right now, what we have with these four elements here are telling JavaScript the following. JavaScript, create a variable, give it the unique name, and inside that variable or that box, put it text, and that text is going to be Roger. Okay. Of course, I think not all of you are called Roger, so please do put your name, whatever name you want in it. Okay. I don't expect for all of you to be named Roger. That would be what would be the odds of that? So yeah, so that's how you create a variable with text in it. Okay, let's do it again. Now, instead of name and putting your name, let's put a city that you were born or a city that you really like. So we're going to do the same. We do a space. We create a new line. LET space city space assignment symbol space double quotes, which are automatically created. And I'm just going to put Barcelona. Okay. So again, answering the question that we had earlier, you see that Barcelona, for example, or my name, I'm doing it in capital letters. That is exactly how you would write text. So this is how you would need to do this is case sensitive, but these keywords need to be lowercase. Okay. And let's create another variable, country, which could be the country that you're from or a country that you really like. So let's say LET country space assignment double quotes, and I'm going to put space. Okay, everybody with me? I'll give you a few seconds just to questions whilst someone writes down if there's any questions. This is just a set of instructions. So JavaScript is starting from the top. Don't think that JavaScript is ignoring this bit at the bottom. JavaScript will read everything from top to bottom, including the three variables. Okay. I don't know if there are any questions. If there
Everybody's saying all good. Yes.
Perfect.
Seems fine.
Great. So remember what we used earlier, the alert command, ALERT brackets. Yeah. Earlier we put 55, right? So why don't we do it again? Let's all write again this alert, ALERT brackets 55. Okay. And once you've got this, why don't you all please click on the run button again? So effectively, by clicking that, we're asking JavaScript to read and execute all of that, right? So perfect, we've got this 55, right? Love it, we got it. Now, the importance of variables or use of variables is that instead of writing 55, let's say I want to include Roger. So instead of 55, I'd remove this and I write down the variable name. So in this case, say name. So I can just write here NAME, name, which is the exact name of this box, which is JavaScript, right? So I put it in between the brackets. And if I execute that, what JavaScript will do is it will show me whatever information I have stored in this box, which in this case is text, and text is Roger. So as usual, don't take my word for it. Let's just have a look. If I now click run, you'll see that JavaScript will trigger a pop-up and the information in it will be Roger or whatever name you've included in the variable name. Okay. So here, again, JavaScript reads all the instructions from top to bottom, creates all these variables, and then triggers a pop-up with information stored in that box. Okay, perfect. Now let's delete that. Now we see how we can put this information in the pop-up. Let's delete all of that. Something that is also cool that you can do is, thus far we've been putting text in it, right? So what's called strings. This in JavaScript, I'm just going to do this symbol that you all know. It's just comment and strings, right? So strings or text. Okay, so these are variables with strings or text in it. Okay, of course JavaScript also operates in numbers, so why don't we create now a variable with a number in it? So to create the variable, we know how to do it, LET, and instead of this time we're going to call it year born, the year that you were born. So we're going to do year, YEAR, capital BORN. Now, why do I put this capital here? This is not necessary in relation to the question that we had earlier. You could totally write the variable like this, no problem, and it still works. In JavaScript, this is a convention. It means it's not necessary, but you do it because when you have a variable with 2 words, it's easier to read 4 words if you just put a capital. But it's not necessary. This is what's called camel case. Camel case, because the camel is low, then it goes up, and then it goes down again, right? So don't pay too much attention, but I just thought I would show it to you. So year born, assignment, and this time we're going to write a number. So you can just type numbers, let's say, for example, 1980. Okay, So in this instance, we're telling JavaScript, create a box, call it year born, and I can see that there's no other variable with this name, so we're good. And storing it a number. You see that CodePen automatically changed the colors. You see that LET is in yellow, blue is in a variable number, text is green, and numbers is orange. This is just what CodePen, the platform that we're using, uses to help you understand, okay, this is a number, this is text. So it's just easier for you. Okay, so if you see the orange, then it's obviously noticeable that this is different from the green, and that shows you that there's a number. Okay. So again, now I have this number. I could just write the alert again, A-L-E-R-T, and then I could just write down year born just to see the number, right? So again, exactly how we did earlier, and you can see the information stored in it is the number that we had. But here's something cooler. If we remove all of these, let's store something a bit more interesting. We've stored in boxes, text, and numbers. But what if we could store also a calculation, a mathematical calculation? Let's try it out. Let's create a variable called calculation. L-E-T space calculation, one word, space 2020. All right. Now I'm going to do an operation here. So I'm going to do the year, the current year, 2020, and I'm going to subtract the year that I was born, 1980. So I'm going to do space minus, so the subtraction symbol, just like in mathematics, year born. But instead of writing here 1980, because I already have it stored in a box in a variable, I can just do year born, which is the name of this variable, which in turn contains this information, right? So as you see here, what I'm storing in this box, in this variable, is not a number, is a calculation. So I'm subtracting the current year from the year that I was born. So again, if I can just do alert, brackets, and then I put calculation in it, calculation, right? And I run this, JavaScript will show me the result of that operation, of that calculation. So don't take my word for it. Let's just have a quick look. See, 40, right? Now 40 is, of course, the difference between 1980 and, 2020 minus 1980. That's the difference. So if I change that to 85, and then I run the script again, obviously the operation is different, and the number changes to 35. Okay. So this goes to show you. Yes, there's a question?
I was just going to say, yeah, one thing is we don't see your alerts pop up, but I'm sure everyone can see them on their own CodePen.
Okay.
There is a question from earlier, but it's linked to this now. So why is there not a space between alert and then the bracket for calculation? Why is there no space there, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And somebody else is asking, where are the alerts? Can you hear us okay, Roger?
So there's no space because it's altogether. So this is a keyword.
Roger, can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I think your connection just went off there. So if you can just repeat what you said there.
Yeah,
Thanks.
sure. So there were two questions. One is why there's no space in here. And then the second one, Ruth, was that where do the alerts go? Is that correct?
Somebody was saying that they don't see the alerts. And that's what I was saying. I think when we're seeing Roger's screen, because there's no pop-ups showing, we can't see his alerts. But if you run it on your own CodePen, then you'll be able to see the alerts, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, I think the reason why you don't see it is more about Zoom, like the way that it is sharing. So sorry about that, but you just see the pop-up and you'll just see the type of pop-up there. To Ruth's point, she's completely right. You don't see it because Zoom, it's the way I'm just sharing my screen. So sorry about that, but hopefully you'll be able, if you run it, you should be able to see the pop-ups in your screen. Okay. So that's the second question. The first one, it's because there's no space because JavaScript would not understand these separately. So you would want to put all of these as an instruction. So just like LET is a keyword, JavaScript reads this one as one chunk, needs to have it rolled together. It's just the instruction that it's a predefined instruction. So it's better just to put it all in one word, just so JavaScript understands that alert and the brackets are actually associated, that are not two different instructions. So you do it so it knows that this is all one set of instructions. Okay?
Perfect.
Great stuff. So this is alert, and hopefully, as I mentioned earlier, sorry about the not being able to see my pop-ups, but hopefully you just follow these instructions, you'll see that the pop-up includes the result of that operation of the calculation. Okay? Now, if you run this pop-up again, and you'll see the number, in my case, the pop-up contains 40, but you'll have whatever number in it, could actually, imagine you were not the web programmer. Could you actually understand what that 40 means? You don't know what 40 is. It could be years, it could be months, it could be kilos, it could be anything, right? It has, the person that would see this pop-up would have no context whatsoever, and this would not know what is it that you're talking about. So why don't we fix this? Let's try to give this message a bit more context. To do so, let's remove all of this, calculation and alert, right? And let's create a variable called sentence, like in English, sentence. So we're going to do let space sentence. Okay, make sure that the spelling is right. That's sentence, sentence, space, and I'm gonna put here some text. Just say I am. Okay. So thus far, we're just putting text, no problem. We're putting a space in between so the text can be easily read, I am. Now, another statement or instruction you give in JavaScript is, earlier we saw the minus symbol, right? Which is in mathematics subtracting. For JavaScript, it also works if you did a plus symbol. It would also be the result, the product of these two numbers combined, okay? So exactly like in mathematics. But if you use the plus symbol with text, what you're doing is you're merging two pieces of text together. Let me explain myself. Sentence right now has a string or text that reads I am. If I do space plus space and I put another bit of text, it will merge both bits together. So let's say I want to, in a sentence, I want to include I am Roger, but I already have Roger stored here, right? We saw it in the variable name. So I can do I am space name space name. A name, you see the color is different. It refers to this variable. So it will merge this text, right? So you can effectively create dynamic sentences. Means that if you change, this sentence will also. Okay, done for it. Let's do an alert. ALERT brackets and then sentence SENTENCE. Okay, so now if I run that, as you mentioned, you will probably not see it. Sorry about that, but hopefully if you run it, you should see a pop-up in your screen with the combination of I am plus 9. Okay, now what happens that you probably noticed, and I'll just put here because you cannot see my pop-up. I'm just going to put here what you saw. So here I'm going to put a comment. This text is effectively what I saw. You probably got the same, and you say, hey, Roger, this is not working. There's no space in here. There's no space because, remember, you need to tell JavaScript exactly what you want. JavaScript doesn't know that this is a sentence. You telling JavaScript this is a sentence. So that's why it's just merging these all together as if it was one word. To fix that, you just need to put a space at the end. So between M and the second and the closing quote, put a space, and JavaScript will say, you wanted to create space between those two. Now I understand it. Let me just put that instruction here. And if now you run again the alert, you should see that the text, the space between AM and your name should exist. You should have I am, in my case, Roger, in your case, whatever name you have. Okay? Everybody with me thus far?
Some yeses in the chat there, some thumbs up. Definitely, yeah.
Perfect, great stuff. So now we have a sentence that is I am Roger. Let's do it a bit longer. I can add, you remember that I put this plus symbol. I can put more plus symbols after, right? So let's say I do plus again, space, and instead of writing name, I say, let's say, for example, put double quotes, which we know is string to do text, space, and I am from, space, plus city. I'll explain all of it in a second, okay? So what we're doing is we're just repeating this again. We're putting I am, then name, plus, I put this space here at the beginning because remember what happened earlier, that you didn't have space between the words. So putting this space between before and after the text will ensure that there's space between the content of your variables and the sentence that you're writing. So of course, what I'm doing here is I say I am plus name, whatever name I've stored, space, and I am from plus whatever information I have stored in the variable city. Okay, so let's try this again. I can run this again, and now hopefully the sentence will be longer. And if you've left the spaces, you'll have the sentence I am, in my case, Roger, and I am from Barcelona, or whatever city you put. Okay, now let's just do it one more. Plus, let's say Barcelona, which is space, which is in space, plus country. So all what I'm saying is I am Roger and I am from Barcelona, which is in Spain. Okay. So again, I'm leaving the space between before and after to make sure that the text in the pop-up is properly readable. But if you've done that, then you rerun again. The alert, the content of the pop-up that is triggered by the alert, it should be the full sentence. Okay. Everybody with me? Everybody has been able to create this long sentence with 3 variables? If not, if you have any issues, please just let me know. Otherwise, hopefully you're able to print that sentence all together.
Yes, people are saying yes in the chat.
Oh, perfect.
Looks like everyone's
so
with us.
So now let's do one thing. Perfect. Now let's do one thing. Let's remove these up here. Just remove it all together. And let's remove also this text if you have it. And we have the sentence variable. Let's just leave it here. Okay. Now let's do one thing. Remember that we closed those columns earlier, excuse me. So why don't we just open that again? HTML, and we have the CSS. Remember that we just drag it. You can leave this here. Don't worry if this moves. I know this might move, but don't worry. It's just resizing. Don't worry. So, all right, like this. So we have all our information. Yeah, and we have here the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript. Okay. Now, if I scroll up here and drag it up, I see this as well, right? I'm going to close it, but we still have this here, right? Now, do you see here in HTML, there's at the end on line 6, there's like a bit of an arrow and a bit of a weird symbol. There's 4 like symbols at the beginning. Why don't we remove those 4? So let's just come here, remove those 4. You'll see that the color change. So again, there's 4 symbols like an arrow, exclamation mark, and dash dash. So we just remove those 4. Yeah. So the first symbol you should have is this little arrow followed by button. Okay. So just again, there's 4 symbols here. I remove 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first thing I have is this arrow and then button. Okay. And then at the end, you see this funny arrow. We can also leave those 3. So this arrow with these 2 dashes, let's also do it. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So now we have this here. All right. So just to one time again, just remove these 4 and then these 3 at the end. Okay. That's the first step. If we scroll that up now, we see a sentence, an image. And if I now run the script, you'll see that all this appears and then appears again, and it puts this button, right? Nothing happens now, so don't worry. You might see this funny symbol here. Don't worry too much about it. Now, what I would like us to do is, if you scroll down on your JavaScript, so I just want to make this a bit smaller. If you scroll in your JavaScript at the very end, don't delete anything, just go at the very end. There's some text here, right? There's a comment. Let's just remove these 2 symbols. Remember that this is what a comment does. So let's just remove those 2 symbols, 1, 2. So the first word that we see is const. Don't worry about it. you'll see that as you delete those two, the color changes from green to more colorful. So 1, 2, and I just remove that now, right? Now, everybody with me?
Yes, it looks like
Cool.
it.
Perfect. So if I scroll down now at the top and just change everything, right? I can run my script. Nothing happens. Okay. I want to show you why is it important, the variables that we've done. So here I have, hi, my name is Sarah, and this is an image of my favorite countries. And now if I click this button, I would like to ask you to please click this button. But what you'll see is that all of a sudden, the text that I had here is being replaced with the text of the sentence that we've been working on. Now, this is just a bit of a glimpse of the power of JavaScript, is what JavaScript can do. And as we continue in this series, you'll be able to better understand it. But you can see why is it relevant that we store information in variables, so we can do this sort of manipulation. Okay. I will explain to you how the magic that we've done works in subsequent webinars. But for now, understand that that's how information is stored in variables. That's why. And that's just a little bit of a very, very small example of what JavaScript can do. Now, we've done a lot of things. I'm just going to go back to the slide. We've done a lot of things today, but just to recap, to make sure we've understood what we've done is, what we've done is we've seen the JavaScript scope of work, so the environment where JavaScript works. We've seen how we can write in a JavaScript file, as you've all done just now. You've seen what JavaScript variables are and how do you create JavaScript variables. You've seen the alert command, which all of now you know how to use it and how you trigger information. And lastly, you've also know how to create strings and numbers when it comes to JavaScript. So all of that is what all of you have just done now, in addition to string concatenation basics, which is effectively when you combine variables with text. I think I am plus Roger. So this is called string concatenation basics. So use the number, the name might be a bit ugly, but you just did it. So all of these things is what you've just learned right now in the last few minutes.
Roger,
so,
can I stop you
very good
there?
job, all of you. Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to stop you there because I think somebody was asking in the chat if you can possibly show the HTML screen again, where you removed those final parts so that they can link it up and have their button. If
Perfect.
that's okay.
Everybody can see my screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. So this is what we had earlier. Okay. This is HTML and this is JavaScript. You see here at the very bottom of HTML, there's 4 symbols, right? You see that the sentence is gray, right? You just need to remove the first 4 elements. So there's like an arrow, you can remove it. There's an exclamation mark, remove it. And then there's 2 dashes, you can also remove it, 1 and 2, okay? So the first character you should have here is this little arrow, followed by the word button, okay? You'll see that you know you've done it well if the color of the sentence changes, right? From gray, you just remove the 4 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that changes. And then at the end is this funny arrow, these 3 symbols. You can also load it 1, 2, 3, okay? So just once again, this is the code you received. You just remove these 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then these 3 at the end. Okay? Now what we're doing is, if I run this now, I'm just showing the HTML button. Okay? You see that the sentence is still the sentence. If I click now, nothing happens. It will give you this exclamation mark here. Don't worry too much about it. Okay? Now, the second thing is, if you go on your JavaScript file at the very bottom, towards line 60 something, you just need to remove the 2 slashes at the beginning. So the sentence is gray. What you just need to do is you need to remove these 2. 1, 2. Okay? Again, the color will change. So you just remember the first 2 characters, 1, 2. So the first word that you have is const, C-O-N-S-T. Okay? There might be a space here. It's fine. It's not a problem if you leave it or if you remove. Okay? So just again, you remove these 2, 1, 2. Then that changes. Okay? Now we have the JavaScript ready. Okay? Now I just scroll that up. I run this again. You'll see that the image will disappear for a second. No, it's a problem. It's just reloading the whole page. And then I'll have the old sentence, the button that I had here. And if I click on it, then you should be able to see your sentence that you've created here. Does that answer your question?
Kathy? Have you been able to do it this time around? There's also a question, Roger, about saving when you're signing into CodePen, but I think actually in the chat they've managed to resolve it. And another question about whether you can use Python from CodePen.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know about that? Are you still there, Roger? Can you hear us?
Yeah, you cannot use Python in CodePen. You cannot use it. Yes, yes.
And yeah, I think they've managed to resolve about saving it. Kathy, if you want to, we can try and help you out a little bit more. She's still not managed to get the button to click. Someone else has said that they're not able to do it. What I can do, if you want to, is afterwards I can share the recording with you, so that you can do it in your own time if you want to practice. Because then that way you can try it lots of times. I was the same. We did it through with Roger the other day, and it took a long time because I wasn't able to look at one screen and then have my CodePen on the other. So definitely feel free to send me your email address, and I can pass on the video to you afterwards so you can follow it again. Sorry to interrupt you, Roger. You can go back to your presentation if you want to.
Yeah, not a problem. So this is just a bit of a recap of what we've seen. As I mentioned, just to make sure we ground all these concepts, you've seen all of these things, and now you should be able to pretty much confidently do all these things. So you now understand what the scope of work. You know how to write in a JavaScript file. So as we've seen, we've given a lot of instructions. You've been able to create several JavaScript variables or boxes. You know how to use the alert command. You're able to manipulate basics on strings and numbers, so text and numbers as we've been doing. And then the string concatenation basics, which is nothing but that combination of text and variable names that we've done to create a full sentence. So very good job, all of you. This is quite a bit that we've gone through. I know it only seems as 6 bullet points, but there's quite a bit that there's quite a few that you hope you these have helped you to ground a bit. So as Ruth mentioned, she'll send these sessions again so you can just practice more. But this is pretty much, I'm going to probably leave it here because it's quite a bit, and I want to make sure you can practice with these concepts. We're going to go in much more detail in subsequent webinars about these aspects and other aspects of JavaScript. But from my end, this is pretty much what I wanted to cover for today's session. I really encourage you to, hopefully that has been useful for all of you, but I really encourage you to continue learning, try things, break things, don't worry too much about it. In JavaScript, nothing truly breaks. So just try things, experiment, and just continue. Hopefully, we're going to be holding hands with you in continue allowing you to get deeper into JavaScript, whether it's in subsequent webinars or one of our courses or however you decided to do it. But hopefully that has given you a good breakthrough on that. And that's pretty much what I have for today. I just thought now we could have a few minutes in case we want to do any Q&A. Before we do that, Ruth, are there any outstanding questions that we need to address? There was one that you mentioned about Python.
Yes.
The answer is no. You cannot use Python on CodePen because CodePen is designed for a combination of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So yeah, you cannot use Python on it wouldn't work. It wouldn't understand the instructions.
Yes. So there were a few more questions here. I've noted them down, so maybe I can go through them and you can answer them. The first one was linked to how HTML and CSS link together. And I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I know in one of our previous workshops, one of our instructors explained it as you imagine HTML as a little bit like a face, and you've got all the different parts, so the nose, eyes, mouth, and everything. And then CSS is the part that actually aligns it into position. So it puts the eyes in the middle of your face, not on your forehead. Your nose on where your nose is supposed to be. That was a really nice way, I thought, to describe it. But maybe you can explain a little bit more about HTML and CSS and how they link together.
Certainly. So let me do one thing. I'll just go back to this. So this is the slide where we explain it. So the question is, how do they work together? Is that correct?
Yes.
Cool. So when you load a website, you do your browser, your Google Chrome, your Safari, your Internet Explorer reads a file. Okay, that file is effectively stored in someone's computer, right? That's in essence what happens, right? So your browser accesses a public folder of someone's computer and reads the instruction in HTML, right? This HTML file has a set of instructions, right? These instructions are in HTML, of course, in CSS and in JavaScript. So if I look at here, this file is effectively an example of the file that you would have the browser will go through. The CSS instructions are effectively also stored here in what's called head, right? And the JavaScript instructions. So in just one file, you have HTML instructions, CSS instructions are stored here in the head, and the JavaScript instructions are stored in the script. Okay. Now, how do they work together? As Ruth mentioned, HTML creates a skeleton. Just as she mentioned, the example that she mentioned earlier, if you create a face, HTML will say 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth. That's it. But they're organized. You just ask me, you want 2 eyes, 1 mouth, and 1 nose. That's it. CSS will say, hey, want to be next to each other and above the nose. So do 3, put the nose and then put the mouth. So CSS will work on top of what you've defined with HTML. HTML will define the content and the layout. CSS will define the presentation. So the styles, the colors. So for example, if the eyes have to be green, blue, or brown, this is what CSS will take care of. Okay, so these two work together. They do different things, but they hold hands to make sure that the website that is presented to you looks good. So HTML does the structure. I want 2 eyes, 1 image, some text here, and CSS will say, okay, this is very good and everything, but let me change the colors. Let me organize the display. Let me put the eyes to be green and nose to brown, for example. Okay, so that's what CSS will do. Will just be the presentation, the styles. So in a website, CSS will change things like the color. So when you go to a website and the text is red, for example, that will be done through CSS. Another example of CSS will be another instruction where all the paragraphs, for example, or if you have some text, you're going to put these in font that is much bigger. Let's say, for example, the titles, you want that to be, the text to be much bigger, right? So that will also be done through CSS. So it's a set of instructions that affect the presentation of the content that HTML has created. So HTML puts in a screen all the content and organizes it. CSS makes it pretty, so to speak, or changes the colors, the presentation, and the styles. And then in addition, JavaScript will take care of all the interaction. Does that answer the question?
I think so. We have another question here about, maybe this is for a future workshop, Roger, but about other keywords that exist in JavaScript apart from let and alert. Sure.
So there's a lot of keywords. And as Ruth mentioned, I could give you now 3 dozen just now, but I don't want to confuse you, but there's a lot of many more keywords, many more. I don't think there's dozens, I think there's hundreds of them. So there's quite a few more that you will learn. Typically it comes down to the same thing. The basics are not that difficult, so don't worry too much. You don't need to memorize all of these things. As you get into JavaScript, you'll just remember the main keywords. You'll just know that by heart. When you get better at JavaScript, or if you're probably advanced already, you'll know that you don't need to have like a document next to you with like a cheat sheet or something with notes and all the keywords. You'll just remember those. So there's many more. There's things like functions, for example. So the word function, function, and it's in English, F-U-N-C-T-I-O-N. That's another keyword. There are many more. Function would be one, but I would strongly recommend for you to just ground those for now. And then, in subsequent webinars, we'll share some more with you. So, yeah.
Definitely. And I really like Charles Ray's comment here, where she says, you can probably just look them up on Google. And if I'm not wrong, that's a key skill of a developer. To be able to Google things is definitely a skill of a developer.
Absolutely.
in answer to the question about whether there'll be more sessions that are more in depth, just like Roger said, yeah, there will be more sessions following on from this about JavaScript. And so if you follow along, we will continue from this point and go in a little bit more depth. Somebody else has asked about, so Jackie has said, you explained JavaScript being read in HTML between the script tags, but in this demonstration, there are no script tags. How has that worked? If you can explain that a little bit more.
That's a very good question. Let me put it this way. What CodePen does is it makes it easier for you. So what CodePen does, it says, you know what? Instead of creating everything, writing down all of that between those two script tags, I'm just going to create a side screen. So if you still see my screen, excuse me.
Yep.
So what CodePen does is you see that there's no script tags here. That's just so CodePen makes your life easier for you. So what CodePen does is it says, I'm going to create an HTML file, and the content of that HTML file is going to be this. So you don't need to tell me it's an HTML file. I already know it. And you don't need to create the two script tags. Whatever you put in here, I'll assume that I need to put it between those two tags. So don't worry too much about it. So the reason why we don't have to do it is because CodePen facilitates that process. It just makes it much easier for you. So it does some of the legwork for you. But technically, if you saved all of these in a browser, if you wanted this website to be deployed, so that is to be accessible by anyone, then your JavaScript would be effectively stored between those two tags. Yeah, it's just that CodePen allows that process to be much easier.
Perfect. I think that answered your question, Jackie. And thank you everybody who's also just saying well done to Roger. Thank you for the great explanation. Thanks everyone for participating. One thing before you go, I would quite like to go back to Roger's question at the start, where he asked you all why you wanted to learn to code, because I'm not sure if Roger, you managed to read the comments there, but there were some really interesting comments. So a few people said, obviously they wanted to learn new skills, start a new career, learn tools for teaching. So they must be a teacher and they wanted to learn how to build their own tools. Somebody, a really interesting comment, somebody wanted to learn how to, or build apps and support the internet for visually impaired people. Which is really interesting. And another comment that I really liked was somebody that works in IT and they want to better understand what the developers are talking about. And this is a really, really common theme as to why people in the end join one of our courses, or they want to learn to code because they want to kind of match up all the dots and better understand everything. So really interesting comments there.
Very, very much so. And I think all of the reasons why you want to code that you mentioned, that Ruth has just read out right now, are definitely stuff that you can definitely do with programming. So all of you want to change a career, coding is obviously, I mean, is an ever increasing demand. There's not sufficient developers for such a big industry. So from a career perspective, if you want to get into a new career, definitely, definitely starting webinars like these, courses like CodeUp, or, if you continue learning on your own, definitely is a great start to for career change. That app about visually impaired, that's such an interesting project. And I have to say, what an interesting and very nice idea. I feel it's definitely something you could facilitate with coding. So I would strongly recommend for you to pushing a bit more in coding and see, you will be surprised how fast you will be able to start at least prototyping some of these ideas. So you can start putting into code the ideas that you have in mind. So definitely I encourage you to keep up with that, because it's a very interesting idea. Also, to build tools, I think you mentioned in terms of teaching, absolutely. Trust me, all the platforms, and when I mean all the platforms, I mean every single platform that exists on a browser, all of them require a degree of JavaScript. So you will definitely be able to do very, very powerful and funky features as you continue learning more about JavaScript. So absolutely empathize with that. And lastly, the person with an IT background that wanted to understand developers, trust me, this is why I learned code. As I mentioned earlier, I was working with software developers that were talking some gibberish that meant nothing to me. And it was as a result of that experience that I said, you know what, I want to learn what you're actually talking about. And that's why I started to learn code. And right now I'm not a there's many software developers that are much better than me. But what I can tell you is that if you continue learning, you will definitely be able to have a conversation with them and say, that's what you mean when you say such and such thing, or that's why you need information in this way, or that's why you require the requirements to be in such and such way. So it definitely is going to help you a lot to better understand the way that a software developer works and how you can better engage with him or with her. So yeah, very interesting reasons to pursue a career in programming. So great stuff.
Definitely. And I would add to that, I mean, just from our experience with the courses, it's never too late. You're never too old. You're never too stupid. Often people come to us and say, oh, but I wasn't very good at math at school, so I'm never going to be able to learn to code. It doesn't matter. Definitely, we've had all sorts of backgrounds, experiences, people from all over that have joined our courses. And I can say anyone can do it. There's a couple more questions here. Just, are you going to organize more workshops? Yes. Oh, for React.js. That's a possibility. Roger, I don't know if you want to talk more about that.
Sure. We're definitely going to do more webinars on JavaScript. One word about React. Remember at the beginning that I mentioned that JavaScript has evolved a lot since its inception in the 90s. And there's many variants and so on. React is one of them. Now, React is what I would, we might do webinars on React, so that's the answer. But just one word, if some of you are considering doing React, my recommendation, and I'm fairly confident that any developer that you talk to will tell you a similar thing, before you get into React, make sure you get a strong foundation on JavaScript. You don't need it, but React is nothing but JavaScript in a different dialect. So I would just be a bit wary about starting with React. Just make sure you get a strong foundation. Look, if you want to go for it with React, definitely. And as Ruth mentioned, we might also do webinars on React. I've built apps on React myself. But what I would say is in the meantime, just make sure that perhaps get a strong foundation on JavaScript first, and then you can move on to React. It will just help you, your learning process will be much easier. So, but yeah, it's definitely one of the keywords, one of the key trends for our industry. So yeah.
And the same question goes for Node.js and Vue.js as well. Likewise, I think, Roger, what you were saying there.
Yeah, so same story. All of these, so there's effectively three, that's a bit more complicated, but React, Angular, and Vue.js, all of that is, look, it's all based on JavaScript, all of it. Right, so it has the syntax and the grammar, so to speak, is a bit different, but it's all based on JavaScript. Node.js is nothing but, remember when I said at the beginning that JavaScript can also be used for other purposes, and that the JavaScript that we were learning here was to build websites, right? So Node.js is nothing but using JavaScript, the same keywords, the same statements, but instead of building websites, you use it to do some stuff in the backend. So for example, to store information in the database, right? So you would use Node.js, right? It's the same grammar, is also based on JavaScript. The takeaway is all of these are definitely skills that if you want, in particular, if you want to get a career into software development in today's market, you would want to get. But first, I would strongly encourage you to first get really strong on JavaScript, because then the rest will just be it's just a bit of a dialect, so to speak. So there's some changes in the logic, but if you get strong at JavaScript, the other three or the other four that we just mentioned will be downhill from there, I think. So yeah.
Brilliant. And I have to say, it does get addictive. Once you start learning one, you want to learn them all, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, you'll find yourself probably Googling some stuff, and some of the code that I showed you earlier that I didn't explain, you'll probably be playing with it. But I strongly encourage you to just play with it, Google it, and find your own way and your own rhythm. With the futures webinars that we're going to do, we're going to get into it more detail into these, give you more confidence in some of the areas, introduce new keywords, new features of JavaScript. But in the meantime, I know that curiosity killed the cat, but you know what? If you're curious, definitely Google some stuff and have a play with it. So yeah, I strongly encourage you to do that. Nothing, you cannot break anything with JavaScript. So try things till it breaks, no problem. It's just JavaScript and it's just a website. So yeah.
And there's lots more comments going here. So I don't know if you've got a few more minutes. There's a few more questions here I can ask. So one thing, Charles, I really agree with you. It gets frustrating too when it's not working and you can't find help. And this is often what we find when people are joining our workshops, they always tell us the same thing, that they've been trying for ages on their own, and then suddenly they found they need to use YouTube videos, or they found another resource that would support them. Would you agree, Roger?
100%. And in fact, as you continue learning more on JavaScript, the beauty of JavaScript and pretty much any programming language is that there's multiple ways of doing things. You can achieve the same thing in different ways, right? But something like a typo, the script that we had earlier, this code I just show you here is only a few lines long, right? But imagine if this was like 10,000 lines and much more complicated functions, then a small typo can just change the whole thing. And it's so frustrating when you say, hey, I'm just getting an error. Why is it breaking? And then finding that is definitely the $1 million task, right? So I completely empathize with that. And I think the approach that you follow about Googling and finding solutions is definitely the way forward. The knowledge is out there. CodeUp and other schools, offer you ways to avoid making those errors, but errors will happen no matter how good you are as a developer. This is in software development, this is called a bug. A bug is nothing but a line of code that is breaking, or you're not getting the result that you wanted. All of that is bug. And as you continue learning in languages, whether JavaScript or any programming languages, you make sure you don't experience the frustration in that the presence of errors or mistakes like that is not necessarily a mark of your quality as a developer. The best developers in the world will continue to make mistakes today, and they will continue to have scripts that do not run. So it's just part of the learning process. It is required. I know it sounds stereotypical, but I mean it. No matter how good you get at programming, you will always get bugs, and scripts will always break. It's just part of the learning process, in particular if you do big and very complex applications and functionalities. So yeah. What's the next question, Ruth?
So there's two questions. The first one I'm going to go to is Rupak's question about resources and tools to help build a strong foundation. What would you advise?
MDN. So I'll just go to MDN. So MDN is the Mozilla Developer Network. Today, JavaScript, let's put it this way. JavaScript is a language, right? MDN would be where the theory is stored. So whoever maintains the language, so imagine, for example, I don't know, any languages like Spanish or English, they all have an institution that makes sure that the theory remains, or that the grammar remains correct, and so on. This is MDN. So if you just do JavaScript MDN, this would be the source that I would strongly recommend you to follow. All the information is here. There's keywords that you can see and a lot of funky stuff. So definitely check this out. JavaScript MDN. This is short for Mozilla Developer Network, but MDN JavaScript is just definitely your source to go.
I've just added the link there in the chat, so if anyone wants to go to it. And then there's another question from Mercy saying, how does JavaScript and cybersecurity relate? I'm a cyber forensics student. Right. Are you able to answer that?
Wow, I think you should be telling me that. Here's my thinking, and I'm conscious you probably, the person who asked that knows more than I do. JavaScript is a language. JavaScript doesn't do anything. I feel cybersecurity is an entity in itself. It's a set of processes and practices to protect us, to ensure that there's security in the online, to speak. JavaScript is just a language. Cybersecurity and JavaScript are related in that JavaScript can build stuff for one purpose, and that purpose could be cybersecurity. I feel JavaScript in itself doesn't have, it's not a purpose in itself. It's just a tool. It's a set of tools for you to build things, right? So if you learn JavaScript, you'll be able to do things when it comes to cybersecurity. First, understand some of the issues that might occur when you're building an application. So the moment you build an application, let's say, for example, someone present here mentioned about that visually impaired project. So when you start coding that with JavaScript, you'll be able to realize that the information you're exposing, so when you build an application, you need to be careful with X, Y, Z from a cybersecurity perspective, right? To make sure that there's no leaks in your information, that the data is stored securely, that sort of thing. All of these things you'll be able to realize when you understand JavaScript or any programming language, right? In particular JavaScript, because it's the one that has a great relationship with the web. So learning JavaScript will definitely allow you to do that, right? To understand what are the intricacies and the ins and outs about cybersecurity, some of the problems that might when, you know, you see that Facebook has had X many hacks accounts and so on. On the flip side, with JavaScript, you can build things, as I mentioned earlier. So with JavaScript, you'll be able to put measures in place to ensure that the cybersecurity of your applications or your websites is definitely kept in check, so that there's measures and checks and balances to ensure that you can keep your users and your database is protected, which things that you can build with JavaScript. Does that answer your question? Again, you're much more of an expert than me here, so I'm happy to be challenged, but that's the best answer I could think of now.
I hope so. And one last thing before we go, what I would say is I'm going to add just now a link for a type form, so for a really short survey. Oh yeah, Mercy has said thanks very much for answering that question around cybersecurity now.
Right.
I'm going to add a small link just now for a survey. We would really, really appreciate it if you could just take a few minutes to complete it, just so we can give feedback to our instructors that lead the workshops and obviously improve them, find out more a little bit about what you're what other workshops you would like to do. So I'm just going to add this to the chat just now. I see somebody is asking for a LinkedIn contact. Roger, would it be okay for you to share your LinkedIn contact?
Sure.
If you want to, or an email, a way to reach out to you if people have more questions.
LinkedIn is fine. Just add me on LinkedIn and ping me a message there. Don't hesitate to just ask any questions, and yeah, definitely fire away any questions you've got. So yeah, no problem.
Great, so that's the survey just now. I have to say I've got a broken keyboard, so that's why I'm running off two different screens here. So that's the survey just now, and I'll add Roger's LinkedIn in an email afterwards, after the event. So I can send out a link to the YouTube where this video, it will be an unlisted playlist, so you can watch the video again if you want to, and links to both myself and Roger. If you want to reach out to us, feel free to ask any questions, and hopefully we can help you out. Apart from that, I think that's it. I just want to say thank you very much, first of all, Roger, for joining us. I hope everybody's managed to take something away from this and they've managed to learn a little bit more. And thank you everyone for joining us, whether it's early in the morning or late at night. I see there's even somebody here from India. So thanks very much for joining, and I hope that you can join our other sessions. Feel free to follow us on social media, and we always post all of our upcoming sessions there. Perfect.
Thanks very much,
everyone.
Have a good weekend.
Bye, everybody. Have a lovely weekend.
Bye now. Take care. Bye now.